Hello everyone, this is StrawberryShorty here with a recap and review of Interview with the Vampire, Episode 1, In Throes of Increasing Wonder. So, I'm probably just gonna have a bunch of random, trailer footage and stuff in the background of this, because I'm still away from home and don't have access to my proper editing equipment. And there will be spoilers in this. In case you didn't know, it's kind of like a recap commentary thing. So, I'm gonna do my best here. I always have so much trouble recapping these kinds of things. I'm a big fan of the Vampire Chronicles. It has been a while since I have read the books. I remember the movie way better. I did like the trailers for this show. I was more eager to give it a shot than some people were. I'm not a fan of all the stuff that the media is doing with race swapping and making stuff woke. But the trailers looked interesting, so who knows? And they're at least putting a unique spin on it rather than just changing things. So we'll see. But anyway, so setup here is roughly the same as the last time. We meet Daniel, who is significantly older in this version, and he gets a letter from Louis, who wants to continue an interview they had in the past. So they kind of make it seem like this is almost a continuation of the movie, because the movie ended with Daniel trying to get Louis to turn him into a vampire and Louis being furious. And they play tapes that basically kind of reflect that and make it seem like this is a continuation of that, even though that wouldn't really work. I don't know. I don't really know what they're trying to do here timeline-wise. So that's the basic setup. They show this really cool shot of a wave bridge. I know that's a bit of a random thing, but I had to point it out, is that a real bridge? That's the weirdest looking bridge. But anyway, so the two of them meet, and there's this random dude in the background. I have no idea who this is supposed to be, if this is supposed to be a relevant character or a secretary or something. He clearly has to know that Louis is a vampire, so I don't know if he's going to be a relevant character or what. But he's there. Very curious to know his identity. But we have Daniel and Louis reflecting on the last time they met, and it's Daniel's oh, there's so much you said that was wrong or that I should have followed up on. I guess Louis forgot to mention in the first one that he was actually a black man who was a pimp in the olden times. But whatever, so that's our new setup. I think in the original, Louis was a plantation owner, ran I don't know, sugarcane or something. They referenced that here too, where this Louis' family was in sugarcane, but then the dad died after running the business into the ground. So Louis is now a successful brothel owner. He's got a brother named Paul who is very religious but seems to be mentally unstable. He's got a sister who is about to be married. I don't remember the sister's name. Mary? I think I have it written here somewhere. He's got a mom, and we basically... Oh yeah, and I gotta say, Louis in a hoodie is really weird in the present. I know I'm jumping around a bit. It's very hard to recap these. And they kind of make it seem like they're doing this re-review interview thingy because of COVID. I don't quite understand that. Also, this is the first time I have heard Louis' last name pronounced. But anyway, so we go back to Louis' life in the past, where he's this brothel owner, and he's going to meet up with... There's an incident, and we walk in, and there's this dude who's covered in blood and holding his face, because apparently the lady he was with didn't like what he was doing to her. Said he didn't ask consent for certain things, so she beat the living daylights out of him. Which, I'm not gonna lie, I found it a little hilarious. Because wow, she did a number on him. They cuss a lot in this. I've noticed that a lot with a lot of modern properties set in olden times. They have a bunch of cussing. Did people in the past actually cuss that much? I've always kind of wondered that. There's also some rather odd racism from the characters here, because the white dude who the lady of the evening beat the living daylights out of, he gets mad when Louis is trying to check him, throwing around the N-word, but it's the lady he was, you know, paying for is also black. So it's like, you got a problem with black people, but you're sleeping with a black woman? Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. It's kind of a funny scene, a little weird. Visually, I gotta say, this does look really good. I think that's part of why the trailer kind of drew me in. So, Louis takes care of this, goes back out, and he runs into his brother, who starts, you know, judging him because he's a brothel owner. And they have this rather odd scene where Louis pulls like a knife out of his walking stick and threatens his brother. And I don't like this scene for several reasons. One reason is that, like I said, I don't remember the book super well, but in the movie, Louis' whole thing was kind of that he was a wuss. You know, he wasn't super outgoing or strong or anything. And that's something this show does too. They really try and make it seem like Louis is pathetic and is like holding back, but then you have a scene like this and it's like, this is him holding back? And then they try and tell us how he actually really loves his brother and they're really close, which is something that was from like the original book. In the original book, the death of his brother like had him majorly depressed. But again, that's a really hard sell when you just had him threatening his mentally unstable brother with a knife. It was just very, very weird. Also, Lestat is like shown watching him from a distance, which is yeah. I do like the looks overall of the main characters, Lestat and Louis. So I'll say that. And so Louis goes to his a brothel. I don't know if it's a brothel he owns or not, but he has this this girl there that he really likes, named Lily. And well, who should she be talking to but Lestat? And does he meet his family before this? This is one thing about these online recaps. They don't really tell you much. I know there's also a part where he briefly talks with his family. It gets very confusing. But the family drops a Mayfair reference. I'll just say that for people that know about the Mayfair, which is I only read the first book. But so Louis goes to see Lily and Lestat's already there, and it's basically made clear in this version that Louis is totally gay but trying to deny it because, you know, different times, and also he's a black man in different times. So, you know, like, let's not make life any harder for him. And Lily has a great accent. I love her voice. And she's probably gonna die. Like, I don't want her to die, but I feel like she's probably gonna die. It tends to happen to the ladies of the evening in these stories, especially when they have any kind of plot relevance. And Lestat gives Louis his business card because, of course, he has a business card. I don't even think there's a business on it. I just think it has his name. And, so, yeah. And he's very sassy. Louis also has a little bit of sass. And the whole time, like, because there's this weird part where, like, Lestat is talking to Louis and he's, like, groping Lily. And Louis is just, like, glaring at him. But at the same time, like, Louis is just also kind of drawn to Lestat, which is also hilarious. And I kind of ship it. It's a totally unhealthy thing, but still very ship it. And I think this is, like, one of the first scenes where they refer to Louis as, like, weak. And it's like, again, you had that scene with the brother. He doesn't really come across as weak overall. And, they show this this lamplighter guy who seems nice. He's walking around lighting lamps, and you just kind of know he's about to die, and he does. Pretty sure Lestat kills him. Then we have Louis goes to do a poker game that Lestat is part of with a bunch of other guys, including the injured guy from the beginning of the episode. I probably should have mentioned this, but Lestat spent a very high amount of money to spend the evening with Lily just to kind of mess with, you know, to mess with, what's his name? I can't speak. To mess with Louis. And yeah, I got a little sidetracked there. So phone started ringing. So the people at the poker game, first they say Lestat's last name, which is apparently supposed to be like Leoncourt. I've been calling him Lioncourt this whole time, and I will continue to do so. They want to open up another brothel because apparently they don't have enough. Like, there's like 16 houses in this neighborhood that are brothels. Like, I don't get it. Also, Lestat has telepathy, apparently. And he's, like, communicating with Louis. Like, was this in the book? Was Lestat a telepath in the book? I don't really remember that. They also use the word docent. I have no idea what that means. Just throwing it out there. But, so yeah, like, Louis... there's too many L names in this show, okay? So Lestat's, like, kind of trying to egg Louis on about, like, oh, they're offering you this business proposition, but they don't want to give you enough money, and like, you should be fighting back, and... Again, they're trying to really kind of push this image of Louis as, like, weak. And we cut to a scene at, I guess what is supposed to be outside of Louis' house. It's a really nice house. And the brother's talking to himself, and the sister is, you know, all worried and everything. And there's this kind of disapprovingness going on there. Like, I guess the things with Louis and most of his family aren't supposed to be, like, super, like, good. They end up inviting Lestat to dinner. And, there's a very funny, like, moment where the brother just, like, exclaims, like, wah or something. And it stood out to me because it seemed, like, really random. And, like, again, you can totally tell there's something going on with Lestat and Louis, who have been spending more and more time together, and it's like the brother is not gonna like this. And someone says the word damn. I forget who it is, but I just remember, again, they can upset the brother. And the brother starts grilling Lestat about his relationship with Christ. And Lestat actually has a interesting moment where he talks about how he knew a lot about religion and wanted to become a priest, but his father and brothers dragged him back and, like, beat him until he forgot all about it. And I just remember, like, was any of this true? Because I can't remember that much of Lestat's backstory. But it does seem to be true, given how he kind of goes off the wall and gets yelled at. I think they're a little hard on him, especially since the brother brought it up. We got a commercial for the Mayfair Witches, which is apparently also getting a show. And then we see Lily again. I forget what the frickin' Lily is doing. Is she talking to... I think she might be talking to Louis. And I'm just like, she's about to die. Oh, now I remember. Lestat and Lily and Louis, again, all these L names, are having, like, a private meeting arranged by Lestat. And it's like, it's really reminiscent of that scene in the movie with the prostitutes where they kill them. So it's like, oh, is Lily about to die? This doesn't look good. And... He does something to her where she kind of, like, loses consciousness, and it's not, like... I spent most of this wondering if they're actually, like, having relations or killing her or what. It was so confusing. And the whole time, like, Louis and Lestat are just, like, giving each other these looks. And then after Lily, like, loses consciousness, they start kissing, which it's like, you know, freaking finally, because it's only been about 20-some years and we've been waiting for this. And I thought this was the moment that Louis was going to become a vampire. And it's just like, oh my gosh, Paul was right. We gave in to the gay urges and now we're vampires. And they have this really random scene where Lestat is drinking Louis' blood, but they're floating. Again, is that a power the vampires had? I know they had some weird powers. I don't remember floating. But the floating was weird. So the sister, who maybe is named Mary, gets married to Levy, I remember his name. And then after the wedding, Louis and his brother climb the roof of the plantation. They use, like, these, like, little thin column things, and it just seems so stupidly dangerous. There's a pretty sky in the background, and I'm just sitting there thinking, like, Paul is about to die, he's about to jump off this roof, and he does. It's the most random scene, because they're just, like, talking, and it's not, like, a particularly, like, messed up talk where you'd imagine the brother would jump off a bridge, but the brother jumps off a bridge. So, and it's just sad. And that happens. And the mother, namely, because I was thinking the whole time that the family's probably going to die, because we all know what happens to Louis's house in at least the movie and probably in the book too. And family does not tend to fare well in this, but I was worried the family was going to die. The mom starts blaming Louis for what happened. Like, she thinks, like, he pushed Paul or something, which is not what happened. And I feel bad for him, not going to lie. Because, like, he didn't deserve this. And this is a time when your family needs to support each other. And they have, like, a parade through the streets kind of thing as they carry the coffin to, I don't know, somewhere. And Lestat just kind of comes out of nowhere and starts harassing Louis and is angry because he's been ignoring him. And this is such a weird scene, and the timing of it is terrible because, like, his brother just died and he's doing, like, this funeral procession. Like, what are you doing, Louis? Like, or Lestat. Like, even from the viewpoint of trying to manipulate him, it's stupid, because you're just gonna upset him and cause a lot of problems for everyone, you know? And I feel increasingly bad for poor Louis. I'm glad the sister is safe. I hope she remains safe. But I do kind of want to see Louis and Lestat, like, get into a fight, because I feel so bad for Louis, and, like, Lestat's just being kind of a jerk. So Louis is just so messed up that he goes to try and talk to Lily, because apparently they never actually hooked up prior to that one time we saw in this episode. He would just go and talk to her. So he goes there and learns that she died, so Lestat killed her as well. And they have this kind of interesting scene where Louis goes to the church and he's hysterical and he's confessing all of his sins to the preacher. And Lestat interrupts the confession. He drains the priest and then has this scene. There was a point where he talks with Louis. Another priest shows up and he has this, like, really violent slow motion murder of this priest, because that's another power Lestat has. He can slow down time. And he just, like, punches the priest's face out, like, literally punches his fist through the face, and it just seemed kind of more violent than was needed. Like, I don't really understand this. But that happens. I don't remember if it happens before or after they have this weird conversation. Because they had the confession. And then they have this scene where Lestat is talking to Louis like, oh, you've been weak, you've been quiet, you've just let them walk all over you and all this stuff. And both that and the confession kind of sum up my problem with this episode, where they try to portray Louis as, like, this long suffering in silence kind of person, and nothing really adds up with that. Like, we see him, like, lashing out at his brother at the beginning, which is not a moment of weakness. And yes, there's a moment where his family, like, mentions, you know, oh, you run a brothel, but he's never particularly harassed over it. And yeah, because of his race, they seem to offer him a little less money for helping out with a new project than they should have. But again, it doesn't come across as, like, a particularly big moment. So when they have this confession and they have Lestat's little monologue, I just don't feel like the episode did a good enough job of showcasing that. And so, yeah. Well, Lestat's killing a bunch of people, and I'm really wondering if they're going to keep his thing from the books where everyone he killed, according to him, actually wasn't a good person, because it's like, what did all these people do? Also, Lestat has, like, a see-through coat, which is weird. He's a messy eater. Like, there's blood caked all over his chin at one point. It looks weird. Also, someone gets red eyes. I made a note of that, but I can't remember who it was. Probably Lestat. And Lestat, like, asks Louis to become a vampire, and is like making it clear, I'm asking you this, I'm not forcing it on you, even though, like, you gaslit him into this so hard. And the whole time he's being drained, Louis is making these weird faces, and it's pretty weird. Also, did anyone else see this? Like, after this moment, there's, like, this weird, like, white liquid on the back of Louis' neck. What the heck was that? And then a title drop. Lestat actually drops, or no, Louis, while monologuing to Daniel for the interview, drops the title of the episode, which I think is a really weird episode title, if I didn't say that already. And, yeah. And there's tears. I believe, who are they from? Who was crying? Like, I wish I was at home, because then I could just pause the recording and like remind myself of what's happening, but I don't have that luxury, so sorry if some of this is weird or does not make sense. There's also some nice music as the episode ends, and right after the episode ends we get a suicide warning. You know, like one of those, if you or a friend is contemplating suicide, call this number. And it's a very weird little warning, even if it kind of makes sense. Like, this is not the healthiest show to watch, probably. And then we get like a season preview where we see a bunch of stuff, and like Lestat is super buff. Like, wow. We get to see Claudia. Claudia has also been race swapped, and she also seems significantly older. I don't really know like how that's going to play out, because the whole thing with Claudia is that she's turned into a vampire when she's a little girl and will never grow up into a woman, and that's kind of like what causes her emotional issues. So she looks like she's a teenager in this. I don't know what they're going to do with that. Maybe they're not actually going to make her a teenager. We'll see. I'm very curious where they go with her. Like, I do kind of like her look. There's also that scene from the trailers with Louis and the baby, and they also, I'm just really worried for that baby. And then there's a part where Louis like pushes Lestat and he goes flying, and it's really weird looking. And then the moment I gotta address is where they have the interview guy asking Louis, so did you eat the baby? And like, that's what I want to know, because I'm so worried for that baby. I think the baby's gonna make it. Rest of the baby's family maybe not, but I gotta hope the baby's gonna make it. So that was my weird, rambly recap and review of episode 1 of The Interview with the Vampire. Like I said, I'm not at home. I don't have access to any of my normal equipment or software. I normally use a computer program that I can pause at will. I'm recording this audio with a camcorder. I will then rip it from the video, and then I will set it to something, and I will do this with shoddy online programs that do not always work as they should. So I'm making do as best I can until my living situation sorts itself out. I hope people will watch. If you do, thank you. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of the video, of the episode. And I will catch you next time. Bye!